Welcome to another episode of First Fridays with the FBI. First Fridays FBI is a TV program encouraging situational awareness to assist the public with being aware about preventing acts of domestic and international violence. This podcast is not endorsed by the FBI or any governmental entity. It was created by a citizen for the community to support the efforts of the nation's leading law enforcement agency and to educate the community on how to prevent and report crimes. Make sure to follow us and share on First Fridays FBI on all social media outlets, especially YouTube. And now we're introducing our guest for today, and everyone knows her, Jeanette Harper,
Hi,
Special Agent Jeanette Harper.
thank
Welcome
you.
back.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I'm glad to be back, and I think we're going to see more of you this year.
Yes, we will. So we're
Yes.
going to spice it up a little bit, but I'll still be around.
And we'll be answering those questions. So, today's show is more so answering the question that everyone still has about what the FBI does here in El Paso, not understanding because we have police officers, we have the sheriff's department. So, people just want to know more so what the FBI is doing here in the community. So, we're
Okay.
going to learn more about how the FBI investigates crimes and how. So, with that being said, what crimes does the FBI investigate?
So that's, we have probably over 300 different crimes that we can look at on a federal statute. So our authorities stem where we were given the ability to investigate all federal crimes. They're not exclusively to another federal agency. So those are like crimes given specifically to the Environmental Protection Agency, so EPA, or IRS, right? So we're not allowed to investigate those, but we can work all invested federal crimes that are on the books across the nation, right, at a U.S. level. So with that gives our investigative authorities, we have the broadest authority base out of any federal agency in the United States. So that helps us work domestic terrorism, international terrorism, and up to the traditional violent crimes that we see on a day-to-day basis. So since we have so many different federal crimes that we can work, we kind of divide them into investigative programs. So what we call those are our white collar crimes, our cyber crimes, because everything is connected to the cyber realm. That's where we see U.S. citizens losing billions of dollars every year from scammers online. We're seeing violent crime, drugs, gangs, weapons of mass destruction, public corruption, civil rights, counterterrorism, counterintelligence, so going after espionage and that sort of thing. And of course, the domestic terrorism, international terrorism. So we kind of group them into big, high level programs. And then within them, there's individual threats. Each field office across the nation, we have 56 field offices, work these federal crimes and these investigative programs in one way or another. So we all have resources that are allocated to these crimes or these programs. How do we differ from the state? So why are we here? Why is the FBI here in El Paso? Because there are federal crimes that happen here in El Paso as well as we see across the nation, right? And even in other foreign countries. So we have special agents in, let's say, London, Paris, Beijing, right? All over Australia, all over the world, Mexico City. So we work hand in hand with our law enforcement partners. We also bring in state, local, and other federal law enforcement agencies to work with us on task force. That way we can look at what their investigative authorities are and then see, and we provide ours. So our resources together can help benefit the communities and prevent individuals falling victim to crimes here within our community. So let's talk about the difference between a state crime and a federal crime. So when you look at a federal crime, you have to, first of all, the crime is happening across multiple state lines, right? So multiple states. So that's where we get that interstate nexus. So let's say there's a kidnapping here in El Paso, but then they're in either Mexico or they go to New Mexico, Oklahoma. The FBI becomes involved in that, right? also we've talked earlier in some of our other podcasts that when a crime happens on a federal property, so if it's a bank that's insured by FDIC, which is a federal bank, of course the FBI will be involved, or the special jurisdiction authorities that we talked about earlier in the year, where we investigate crimes that occur on military installations or on Native American reservations, right? So those are federal lands, so we investigate that. And then, of course, you have to have a specific federal law that's been violated. So, wire fraud, mail fraud, those sort of things. And then also, if you're here in El Paso, and let's say somebody living in Chicago commits a crime against somebody that's here in El Paso, that's how the FBI gets involved. So, if it doesn't have kind of those prongs to it, we really kind of work with our state and locals. So the difference between, so let's give you some examples. We also talked about, tax violation, mail fraud, wire fraud. Those are federal violations. Drug trafficking, right? We see that here along the border quite a bit. We're all aware of the cartels. And then, or kidnapping, or even child pornography. Those are federal crimes that the FBI works with some of our partners. Now look at the state level. Of course, you have our local level, right? You have your traffic violations, you have robbery, burglary, theft, rape, and arson. So you kind of look at those different things. So the FBI is not necessarily going to work rape or arson, but if it's an arson at a church, let's say, or a synagogue or a Baptist church, then yes, of course, that kind of goes more into civil rights, and then the FBI becomes involved. So did that kind of help you deviate?
Yes.
So, like, if it's just a regular traffic stop where somebody's run a red light, no, the FBI is not going to get involved. And when it comes to drug trafficking, what the FBI is looking at, we're not looking at the individuals on the side of the street that might be selling the illegal narcotics. It's more of we're trying to, as the FBI, we're trying to go to the actual suppliers. So the higher level. So we're trying to go after the Sinaloa cartel members, right? Their leadership. We're not really looking at the truck drivers that are transporting, even though we will go after them because they're going out of state, right? Crossing state lines. But our main goal is to go after those high level individuals so we can disrupt and neutralize and break apart the criminal organization, thus having a greater impact on the community.
Okay. So for those who have that question about the FBI being in the community, and maybe they feel the FBI may be, I guess, identifying people who may commit crimes, that doesn't happen, does it? That's not what you're here for.
No, we're not here. So we're here to help protect the community and bring justice to victims within the community, right? So it could be, let's say, an investment firm goes after individuals' retirement funds, and now they don't have their pension or their retirement funds. Of course, we're going to become involved in that and try to get restitution back so those individuals can get their money back. So that's why we're here. How the FBI becomes involved in investigations is because we receive tips from the community. So we have that tips.fbi.gov. Our individual will actually call into our office to provide us information on a potential crime that they see that it's green, right? See something, say something. That's what we ask individuals in the community to do, because we're not out on the streets just sitting there trying to find someone that violated a crime. We're looking at the bigger picture, right? So we actually work with individuals. Everybody's heard human sources, informants. Everybody hears that on the TV shows and in the movies. We can't do our job without the human factor, right? Because everybody else out there sees it and then they bring it to us. So we're not out there profiling. We're not saying, okay, well, this community has a higher level of criminal activity, so therefore everybody in that community is guilty, right? No, that's not what we're looking at. We're looking at to find out, okay, who's doing the criminal activity based off tips and maybe individuals within the community that want to come forward and provide us the information.
Okay. Okay. So I guess you answered the question about how does the FBI investigate cases, but I know there's a little bit more to that, right?
there's quite a bit of that. So once you become an FBI agent and even an intelligence analyst, we go through very rigorous training at Quantico, and they teach us how to run an investigation based off the amount of legal training that we get, and then we look at the tools that we go, our investigative tools that we can use to start an investigation from a tip and go all the way up to bringing the case to the federal prosecutors, U.S. attorneys, United States Attorney's Office, our federal prosecutors for prosecution. Or if we need to go to the district attorney's office at a state level, we can charge them at a state level as well. So we have that training, and then let's look at the techniques. Like, everybody thinks we're on everybody's phones, everybody's computers, we know everybody's library books, right? No, we don't. There's a lot of legal processes that we have to go to get a search warrant, to go up on phones, to look at emails, right? There's very specific legal precedent that we have to go through, and it's approved by a federal judge before we can do anything. So there's that portion of it. But then you have to look at our science and technology labs, forensics. We look at a lot of the laboratory issues, CSI. So we had to do a lot of that stuff to get DNA, the forensics, and just looking at the crime scenes. We do a lot of cyber digital forensics reviews. So, of course, the cyber crime, we're in the background trying to figure out IP addresses, and that's way above my my knowledge, but we're doing IP addresses and trying to figure out where the traffic is coming from, and of course the end user. Of course, they're very sneaky and using proxies and bouncing around, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. But in the end, we catch our man or girl and bring them to justice for the community, because that's what the community expects from us, is to see that justice from a crime that's been committed toward them.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that. And for those who are listening, we continue to do this so that people understand why the FBI is in the community, and to understand also that no, the FBI is not trying to investigate everyone just because of what they look like, or what they're doing here in the community. So there has to be a reason.
Yeah. And just remember, we uphold the laws and the Constitution. So First Amendment, that we hold that very strongly. So just because somebody says something, their opinion, we're not going to go after them. Now, once there's a threat of violence, then that's a federal offense. So then we'll start looking at that. So we're here to uphold the Constitution, and we follow those rules. So we just want to really, and I think that's our goal for 2023, is really to get out into the community and keep doing this podcast to educate everyone and why we're here, why the FBI is important, and try to give everyone an inside look of how we operate and what we do.
And for those who have questions, how can they get in touch with the FBI, or if they want the FBI to come and speak to their groups?
So there's different ways. So for FBI El Paso, we have a community outreach specialist, and she has a speaker request form on her community outreach page. So it's fbi.gov/El Paso, I believe. But if you just Google FBI El Paso, you'll get to our page. You can call our office at 915-832-5000 if you'd like to submit a tip, or you can go to tips.fbi.gov if you want to submit an anonymous tip. So there's just different ways to get in touch with us. There's always we have different platforms. You can call, is it 1-800-CALL-FBI? So any way you can think of, we're out there. I do ask that you do not submit a tip on our Twitter account. That is not what that platform is for. It's just more.
Does that happen a lot?
It does, but we do monitor it. But we just ask the community members, don't submit tips there. Just please go to tips.fbi.gov to submit a tip the correct way, because now if you go to tips.fbi.gov, we have our National Threat Operations Center that has hundreds of individuals monitoring those tips, and then can get them to each field office that it affects, right, the area. But if you put it on Twitter, it's one person, me, looking at that. So in order to look at it. So just keep in mind, the Twitter account is more of an educational, pushing out information to the community.
Okay. Well, Jeanette, again, we thank you for coming on. We're going to be keeping these short, sweet, and to the point so that people can grab this information and hopefully share it with others.
Yeah.
So, and if you would like to follow the FBI El Paso on Twitter, that seems to be the only social media, correct? Am I correct?
So we have some good news. I think some of the field offices, we're going to be going to Facebook and Instagram within
Finally.
few months. So I know FBI Maine has an Instagram and a Facebook account, but
Mhm.
now some of the field offices are going to be able to have their own accounts as well. So
Okay.
stay tuned. We may be pushing that out where El Paso will have theirs within a few months.
Okay, great. Because a lot of people have left Twitter, unfortunately, but maybe this way it will help with keeping the community informed.
Yes.
And can you please repeat the local phone number again?
915-832-5000. And we are staffed 24/7. So call anytime if you need to get a hold of us.
Okay. So once again, thank you for coming on, and we'll be back next month. We'll let you guys know what the topic will be next month. But in the meantime, feel free to contact us at firstfridaysfbi@gmail.com or on our social media if you have any questions. And Jeanette is more than happy to answer your questions.
Of course, anytime. Thank you
Okay.
for having me again. Happy New Year. We look forward
Happy New Year to you too. And we hope that we don't have to use the FBI in the community for any crimes that happened this year, but we know crime happens all the time. So, but it was great speaking with you, and we're looking forward to continuing to share information with the community.
Thank you, Monica.
So, thank you. And again, don't forget to follow us on social media at First Fridays FBI, and also follow the FBI El Paso field office on Twitter at FBI El Paso. And hopefully soon they'll be coming to Facebook or Instagram. You never know.